Boats. Allow me to float a recent observation. Architects have a strange fascination with boats. Maybe it has to do with the narcissistic ego challenge to overcome the stasis and confinement of terrestrial construction, or just boredom. But the lure of the open seas is irresistible to the likes of Corbusier, Aldo Rossi, Lynn, and countless others. Like Zaha Hadid's swimming, bony creature. What is it with architects and floating things? While that question sinks in, let's get to the bottom of it.
I'm sailing! I'm sailing! I'm sailing! I'm sailing!
Ahoy! Welcome to Architecture with Stewart. During the summers here in Chicago, part of the city leaves the land behind and drifts right out into the water. Boats and floating vessels of all kinds extend the reach of the city, and it offers a seasonally activated plane of movement and a channel of access. One of the most popular tourist activities here are the boat tours, where you can take a guided journey through the heart of the city, down the valley carved by the Chicago River, and hear all of the anecdotes about the buildings that flank it. While boats and architecture go hand in hand here by providing a casual mobile platform through which to view the city, for some, architecture and boats are connected even more deeply than that. For instance, Le Corbusier's seminal piece Towards a New Architecture, it has a boat right on the cover. And just listen to what the guy has to say about buildings after showing how awesome boats are. A great epic has begun. There exists a new spirit. There exists a mass of work conceived in the new spirit. It is to be met with particularly in industrial production. Architecture is stifled by custom. The styles are a lie. Dude, whatever floats your boat. He admired the combination of engineering and design, as well as the self-contained and thoroughly designed city. He would famously emulate cruise ship design strategies in projects like the Unité de Habitation, where he produced an efficient and dense system of housing like the galleys of an ocean liner. To add another layer of boatiness, the building includes amenities on top like the hull of a cruise ship. And that's all complete with a wonky smokestack thing. The boat also provides a strong metaphor for Corbusier, the idea of a self-contained, modern, spacious, and clean building floating above the ruins of a broken city ravaged by war. He also designed an actual boat atop a concrete barge as a homeless shelter parked in the Seine River. The barge was named Louise Catherine, and it provided a 160-bed homeless shelter on the water. It also had dining rooms, toilet facilities, and showers, quarters for boatsmen and the shelter director, and hanging gardens. He also designed the furniture, including the cupboards and the sliding doors. The intention was for the barge to be moored in front of the Louvre Museum in winter, and in summer to be used as a floating children's camp. In 1950, though, it was repurposed to house ex-prisoners and discharged hospital patients. Corbusier's mobile architecture provides an amenity that can roam around the city to provide added infrastructure and space wherever it's needed at any time. Luc Hahn also famously designed a barge with a similar aim, but instead it provided a music performance venue that could roam the seas, filling the air with music. But architects today also look to boats to provide necessary urban amenities. The architect Kunle Adeyemi designed and built a series of prototype floating structure for the historic water community of Makoko. Makoko is actually a cluster of communities living on water which are largely built on stilt structures, and it's located in the lagoon heart of Lagos, Nigeria's largest city. It's a very dense and urban area with over 100,000 people, yet it almost has no roads, no land, and no modern infrastructure. Adeyemi envisioned a prototype model school as a floating wood-framed triangle. The three-story structures are composed of locally available materials and building techniques. For instance, the floating system is made from recycled empty plastic barrels, which are available almost everywhere in Lagos. The rest of the structure is made from bamboo and wood sourced from a local sawmill. The school initially provided more space for the nursery and the primary school there, but it's been so popular that it's taken on added programming with other community functions after school hours. And he's also realized a similar school in China. In New York, there's a floating amenity that I've been following for years called the Plus Pool. The floating plus sign provides recreational and cultural public programming for underserved communities. It was initially conceived as part of an ideas competition, but the designers have pushed through to make it a reality. While it floats within the water, the Plus pool has an active and a passive filtration system that cleans the water as it enters in. For years now, they've been testing their systems in successively larger scaled and more complex mock-ups, and they're currently authorized to proceed with a due diligence study. In addition to providing a place for communal activities, the Plus pool is a visual spectacle, which boats I think are really good at doing. Think of when you see the Titanic for the first time in the movie. In 2014, we had the Chicago Fire Festival along the river here that included a series of floating wooden houses that would be set ablaze in a celebration of Chicago's rebirth after the 1872 fire. I think it's kind of fascinating how some of these floating spectacles become a way of celebrating and sort of concentrating land-based conditions. Like these architects and designers and theater folks are creating a fictionalized version of the city for viewing along the water. The architect Aldo Rossi did something like this too, with his Teatro del Mundo project, which floated around Venice, Italy. The Teatro del Mundo was built by the architect Aldo Rossi in 1979. Its job was to float around Venice and to offer a venue for theatrical performances. But more than providing a mobile pop-up venue, it's also a large-scale art project, where the spectacle of this building roaming the waters is meant to provoke public thought and inquiry. Through a number of drawings for the theater, Rossi analyzed and condensed Venice into a concoction combining architectural elements that are seen all around the city. He would incorporate these elements in a pared-down form that would recall the city but never be an exact copy of it. So different buildings all get sampled, like the theater, the lighthouses, the cathedrals, all put together in this floating symbol, a fragment of the urban history. The building's approximately 25 meters and is composed of a cube topped by an octagon. It's made of steel poles and a wood skin. The project exists conceptually between being a physical object and an image of one, between being a large-scale model and a drawing. And this is fitting because it was part of the Venice Biennale, a biannual exhibition of art and architecture. Due to the temporary nature of this event, floating spectacles are a common occurrence. There's a cool one from 2010 that is this gridded web of metal that they pulled all the way from Croatia. A few months ago, the Chicago architect Helmut Jahn passed away tragically in a bicycling accident. Here at the Chicago Architecture Center, there's a show that's dedicated to his architecture and his memory. It features a bunch of projects of his in photos, models, and in sketches. And then these are complemented with personal imagery, videos, and memories shared by those that knew him. Part of what comes out in the show, in addition to him being a pretty great but controversial architect, is the fact that he was also an avid sailboat racer. Because I'm not really into sailboat racing, I had to look it up. But according to SailingScuttlebutt.com, Helmut was the 2015 and 2017 Far 40 North American champion in his boat Flash Gordon. I assume that's good. Anyway, the architect Greg Lynn is also an avid sailboat racer who challenged himself to design and build his own boat. Greg Lynn is an architect in Los Angeles known for pushing architecture through the bleeding edge of digital technology and fabrication. During the past few years, he's brought these interests and expertise to his hobby of sailing. He even created a new company, Greg Lynn Yacht, to navigate his adventure. He uses CNC-formed molds to craft a fully carbon fiber trimaran. The hull carries a thickness between 120 layers of carbon fiber cloth, all the way down to 6, depending on where the strength's needed. And this optimization helps keep the weight down. The interior, consisting of a king bed, 2 twin beds, a seat, a galley, a head, and 10 shelves, weighs less than 80 pounds. He also used aerodynamic and hydrodynamic analysis computer programs to test the way that air and water flow around the hull. And these all sound super specific to boat building, but the hope is that the lessons learned here will influence the way that he makes his own buildings. For instance, he believes that carbon fiber will soon be commonplace in architecture because of its strength, its lightness, and its malleability. He says that you only put the material where you need it, and so there's so much less waste. So we've talked about architects that treat boats as a metaphor for architecture. We've explored how architects have used boats as mobile urban amenities. And finally, we looked at a few serious racers who design and fabricate their own vessels. What are some of your favorite floating architectures? We haven't even touched on houseboats, but let's talk about it all in the discussion section below. And while we are engaging down there in our lively discussion, please consider giving this video a like, maybe subscribe to the channel, and finally maybe become a channel member. There you'll be privy to exclusive access to writers' room meetings where we discuss these videos before they come out, and other types of shenanigans, who knows what. Also, you'll be joined by these folks in this lovely growing community. And if you enjoyed this video, you might also like some of these other videos which come out every week on Thursdays. See you over there.